We're going to start with our warm-up, just getting things nice and loose throughout our hips and our legs. And then we're going to go through just a couple of different exercises together, really getting some good intent onto 10 different exercises that we're all going to work through. Then, depending on how much time we have, we might go back through, circulate through a couple of them or all of them. If not, we're just going to go ahead and get into our cool down, our stretching, and our little 5 to 10 minute guided breathing meditation session. So the first thing that we're going to start with is our warm up. First exercise is going to be a hamstring sweep. So getting a foot forward, heel pointed down, toe pointed up. We're going to start working through all that tension in our hamstring by reaching those hands back behind the hips, sweeping through the heel and standing all the way up tall. Staying seated all day really shortens up those hamstrings, so it's important that we target them often and early. Keeping that toe pointed up helps us get all the way through down to the calf and into the heel as well. Making sure that we're alternating each side. Getting both legs nice and loose. And releasing that tension in the lower back. Couple more. And finishing out. All right, next up we have our side reaches. So getting our feet out nice and wide. We're gonna just shift our shoulders over to one side, extending that hand up and over, our top hand coming out, reaching out to the side, stretching through the ribs, the shoulder, down into the hip there. And coming back in, tilting out to the other side, reaching that other arm out and extending those fingertips all the way out, getting a nice big stretch through the side of our ribs and into the hips. And back to the other side. Last time on the last switch here. And coming back tall to center. Now we're going to just bring our feet slightly in, keep them a little bit wider than our hips, and our toes are going to flare out to the side. From here, we're going to drop our hips down towards the ground, popping into a deep squat, getting our elbows inside the knees. If we're having trouble sitting back onto the heels here because of some mobility, we can always bring our hands down to the ground first, then drops the hips down and sit back into the heels using our hands as a guide, making sure we're spreading those knees nice and wide open. Getting into those hips, loosening up that tension from being seated all day. And coming up, out, rocking onto our hands, pressing those hips up into the air and standing back up. All right, the next one we're going to do is just keeping those feet wide. We're going to get our hands out to the side and do some star rotation. So twisting our hands all the way around. As we come around, getting those shoulders all the way through. Nice big twisting rotations. Maybe getting that back heel up, popping up, getting a little bit of twist through the torso and the hips. Just getting everything nice and loose. after all that tension, stretching through the hips and the shoulders. All right, now that we've got things flowing and going, we're gonna hop into our workout here just a little bit. So the first one that we're gonna do, and remember with all of these, we really wanna focus on moving nice and slow, very focused contractions. We're gonna be thinking about how we're controlling our weight and what muscles we're using as we're loading through each movement here. So the first one we're gonna do is gonna be a reverse lunge. So I'm gonna get 1 foot forward here, center my weight over that foot, step back. As I'm keeping that weight, I'm gonna lower down over the middle of the foot, give a little twist and come back up. Stepping back, lowering that weight down and driving back up. We wanna be trying to focus our load here on our glutes and the back side of the leg. So if you're really starting to feel the front of the thigh here and the quads, you're starting to feel that a lot. Try shifting that weight back just a little bit, coming off those toes, and really driving up using that hamstring and the glute as we come back up through that motion here. Giving just a slight twist across the knee and back up. Nice even pace. Controlling that weight down. Just a couple more. And good. All right, next up, we're gonna do our rotating lizard here. So we're gonna stand on the end of the mat. We get our hands out in front and bring 1 foot up. So I like to start in this kneeling lunge position. Bring my hands down to the ground. Pick this back knee up and sink my hips forward. From here, I'm gonna rotate my inside hand up towards the ceiling. Drop down, switch feet, and rotate the other direction. Give a little pose at the top. Moving nice and slow and control. And although we're moving through the movement, we really want to try and tighten that core up so that our body is moving as little as possible as we're changing through each phase here. Got a couple more. Almost there. And finished. Good. Next up, we're gonna head into our pike to plank to push-up. All right. So we're gonna start down with our hands on the mat, knees down. We're gonna pop straight up into a pike by driving those hips up into the air, head pointed down towards the ground, creating a nice triangle with the floor. From here, we're going to shift our chest over the hands into a plank position, lower down into a push-up, and come back into that pike. If you need to, once you get into this plank position here, drop the knees down, push up, and drive back up again. Moving back and forth between our 3 poses here. Nice, even pace. Really focusing on driving through the chest, strengthening those shoulders. Nice, stable weight through left to right side. Just a couple more. Last one. And done. Good. Next up, we've got our shoulder cars. So push-ups can be really tense, keeping the chest really tight, making you want to pull the shoulders forward. So we're going to work on moving the shoulders through and keeping our chest nice and open. So the whole time we're doing this, we're going to keep our chest and our shoulders pointed down towards the floor on our hands and knees. We're going to extend one hand out forward, thumb pointed up towards the ceiling. Bringing that hand up higher. As it passes through the ear, we're going to open up the palm towards the outside. Bringing that hand back around and down, facing the inside as it passes the hip. Once you get back down to the floor, we're going to go back the other direction. Coming around and back down. Extending that hand out forward, rotating around, opening up the palm, and coming back around, palm facing inward, lowering that hand to the ground. Reaching back, we're going to move past the hip, open that palm up, rotate around, and drop back down. Good. Next up, we're moving into our IYTAs. Now strengthening those back muscles that keep those shoulders pulled back and keeping that chest open. The first one we're going to do is our eyes. With our hands extended out front, thumbs pointed up to the ceiling. We're going to pick our chest and our hands up off the ground. Hold up at the top. You want to try and squeeze those shoulders together through the back. Keeping them nice and high. Coming down after a quick pose. And extending out for our wides. At a 45-degree from the shoulder, popping up towards the ceiling, holding, squeezing those shoulders together, and lowering back down. Coming out wide for our T's, popping up, holding up at the top, and dropping back down. Finally, moving our hands down. Now we flip the thumbs down, pointed towards the floor, and pop up for our A's, punching those fists down through the feet, and lowering down. One more time through, bringing our hands up out front, popping those thumbs up to the ceiling, holding up at the top, and lowering back down. Coming out wide for our wides, popping up, holding up at the top, and lowering back down. Next up, we got our T's coming out wide, thumbs up to the ceiling, and lowering back down again. Last but not least, our A's, hands down by the hips, and punching those fists through to the feet, squeezing those shoulders through the back, and lowering back down. Good. All right. Next up, we have our bird dog. So, gonna get into our hands and knees. Now we're just gonna be sucking that belly button to spine, keeping that core nice and tight. As we balance from side to side here, we want to really try and stabilize through the shoulders and the hips. To do that, we got to keep this abdominal section nice and engaged. So, sucking belly button to spine, extending opposite hand and leg out, creating a nice connection from fingertip to toe. Holding up at the top, giving a quick pose, and lowering back down, switching sides, connecting fingertip to toe. Creating that nice flat line, sucking the belly button up to the spine. Lowering back down and changing again. Alternating each side after a quick little pose up at the top. Dropping down and all right, next up, we're gonna flip over onto our back and we're gonna hit our dead bugs. So laying flat on the ground with our feet on the floor, knees up in the air, we're gonna kick our feet up so that they're nice and 90 degrees with our knees. Hands go on top of the knees, and same thing, we're gonna extend opposite hand and leg out. Now, while we're doing this, we want to try again, sucking that belly button to spine so that we're keeping that lower back flat on the ground, and we can really feel that pull coming up as we bring that leg up. Really activating that core and working through that extension from side to side. Should not be a terribly easy exercise. Takes a lot of focus and control. I'm thinking about what muscles you're using to keep those hips and that spine in place. Couple more. Almost there. And done. Good. All right, next up we have our kneel to squat. All right, so starting on our knees here, we're going to step up into a squat position. So staying nice and tall, belly button stuck to spine, shoulder over hips, hips over knees. We're bringing one foot up and into the squat position. Oh, messed up my mat. Lowering back down and alternating sides. Bringing that feet up and back down. Nice even pace. Coming up and down. Switching side to side, keeping that weight over the middle of the foot. Nice and even. Really working on that driving load as we come up on that front leg. And nice even lowering pace as we come back down. Switching back and forth. Almost there. And done. Good. Next up, we're going to head into our shoulder taps. So starting down on the ground, extending the feet back. So we're in a plank position, getting them nice and wide so we're stable. Belly button sucked up to spine, hands right below the shoulders, and alternating side to side. A nice even pace, tapping back and forth. Getting a slight rock to either side. Keeping that core tight so we're not sliding left to right through the hips. Almost there. A couple more seconds. Nice, even pace. And finishing out. Very good. Last little exercise we got before we cool down, go into our guided breathing, is going to be our plank. So, forearms down to the ground, extending the feet back, getting those knees up, and hips flat. Belly button sucked into the spine. Driving the weight through the elbows here, connecting all the way from the elbows, through the shoulders, through our stomach, into the hips, and through the toes. Creating a nice, level balance, nice and sturdy. Really getting that core engaged and working here. Couple more seconds, we got just a little bit longer here. Almost there. All right, just about 5 seconds left. And finished. Good, very nice. All right, so we're gonna get into our cool down and stretching portion here. The first thing we're gonna start off with is a Shin Box routine. So I'm gonna sit into this funky, weird position where I've got both of my legs at 90 degrees. One is rotated inwards, one is rotating outwards. So I've got the inside facing up and the outside facing up on both of my legs here. Now I'm going to sit up and forward and bring my chest down to that inward facing leg so that I'm stretching through the outside of my hip, getting into those deep glute muscles and hip muscles, getting a nice big stretch. And coming back up, rotating around, giving a little twist. And stretching through the front of that hip there. Coming back forward, getting a little stretch. And coming back the other way. Rotating around and through, stretching out to the front of the hip. Switching our legs around, we're going to flip over to the other side. Lean forward, stretching through the outside of that hip, all the way through the glutes. And rotating back around, stretching through the front of the hip, giving a nice twist through those hip flexors. And coming back forward. Back around. And dropping down. Very good. All right. Popping back up, getting our legs back to normal. We're going to go one leg in, one leg out, getting a nice stretch through the hamstring here, reaching our hands down the shin all the way towards the toe. And flipping to the other side. Extending that foot out, tucking our heel in. And stretching out through that low back into the hamstrings. And coming back to the middle. All right, we're going to wrap things up quickly here with just a couple of guided breathing exercises. We're going to do one that I'm particularly fond of, which is the 8-second inhale, 2-second hold, and 10-second exhale. Actually, we're going to do a 4-second hold. But so starting here, getting all our breath out, we're going to inhale in. And hold. And exhale. Breathing in. Hold. And exhale. Breathing in. Hold. And exhale out. Breathing in. Hold. Exhaling out. Breathing in. Hold. Exhaling out. And breathing in. Last one. Hold. And exhaling out. Breathing all the way out, pushing all that air out of the lungs, all the way through the bottom. Every little bit you got. And breathing back in to relax. All right, thank you all so much for joining me on my last group exercise class and my last day here. It has been an absolute pleasure teaching all of you and being a resource. I hope you continue to move and work and strive for some movement at least every single day.
Thank you, Quinn. All the best to you.